Hey everyone, I'm Andrew Coates. I'm the host of Live Free and Diet Hard podcast, and you're listening to episode 316 Lifetime. Kasey Jo Orvidas is long overdue for being a guest here. We've been talking about this for a while, and you are one of the leading authorities where psychology meets fitness and nutrition, I guess is the best way to say it. You have a PhD in psychology. You've done peer-reviewed research and been published that way. That's cool. Not a lot of people get to say stuff like that. And one of your main things is, and you're going to be doing an intake kind of soon. So hopefully when people are listening, pay attention to this or circle back for the health mindset coaching certification. We're going to come back around to that. So welcome. It's great to have you.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to be here. I think we're going to have a great conversation.
And we first connected, we didn't get a lot of time together because we both spoke at the 2022, was it 2022?
Like, was it?
No,
Yeah, I think so.
2023. Uh,
Three?
yeah,
Three.
2023
Yeah.
Real
Yeah.
Coaches Summit. So our friend Aram Gregorian's event, which I love, it's amazing. And I was there just to hang out last year. I'll be back this year if everything goes according to plan, just to hang out. Aram always does new speakers every year, which is actually really cool because it creates opportunities for new people. So put that on your radar. But first, I want to get into this. This is one of my favorite things. Coaches, oh my God, they will go to endless like technical training seminars. Now, I joke because by the time you guys listen to this, I will have already have just attended, as of the time recording this weekend, my friend Dean Somerset and Sam Spinelli's barbell course. And I'm going to learn stuff, right? And I go to support them, but I go to learn. I'm going to go connect with other coaches. But we love going into like the stuff we're already good at. We'll argue biomechanics on social media endlessly. And I want to like dig into what your thoughts are about why coaches will gravitate to the stuff that they're comfortable with versus go to the uncomfortable, uncertain, nebulous stuff like behavior change, like psychology, all that stuff. How can we get people to think about leading into that stuff? How do you get them to buy in? And what happens when a coach brings a good understanding of these things to their coaching practice and their client results?
Yeah, good question. It is so true. Like when I see like who's the guy who does N1 education in his the comment sections are just why are we spending so much time deciding like is this really a hip hinge movement or could we literally it is ridiculous. But
See,
there's a lot of
arguing
passion
over
there.
like subtle differences between different kinds of like hip thrusts and then people naming their own version of hip thrust after them, which I think is ridiculous. And like that kind of stuff is like, this is so insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
It really is. But the people are passionate. We got to give them that for sure. But ultimately, right, spending time arguing on this and can I call this my own hip thrust because it looks XYZ different and it has a slightly different movement pattern, whatever. That's not going to help your clients. It's really not. So I think to answer your question, the reason why people like to stay in those areas that they're comfortable in is because they're comfortable with it. Ultimately, as human beings, we are always going to lean into what's most comfortable for us. And there's also, the level of confirmation bias and the things that we know are the things that we tend to gravitate towards and want to support. So that is a big part of it. And it's interesting because I think in general, I actually had someone asked this question on an Instagram question box the other day. And they said something along the lines of, why do you think people are so scared to take risks? And it's such an obvious answer because it's not comfortable, right? There doesn't provide any kind of safety there. And we are still the same humans that were here many, many, many years ago. And all we tried to do was survive. That's still a big part of the software that we have in our brains. So if something poses a risk or seems uncertain, there's a level of like, this is not safe territory, avoid at all costs. So it seems kind of funny to put that in this perspective, but it's true. Your brain is still working that way. If it feels uncertain or you're not really familiar with it, you should probably avoid it. That's kind of what our general brain systems are trying to tell us, right? So the unfortunate part of this reality is oftentimes those uncomfortable, we all know this, right? From a personal development perspective, even the uncomfortable places, discomfort breeds growth. the risk taking. That's where all of the good stuff really comes from. So in these situations with coaches, when we're just continuing to gravitate towards more nutrition and exercise education, which please do that, enjoy it, like live into your passion. I'm not telling you to stop doing those things, but also recognize that there's a lot of other really big foundational areas inside the coaching space that you likely have not given enough attention. And I'm very incredibly biased in this area, but the research says, decades and decades of coaching and research I've done myself says, mindset, behavior change, psychology, those are the foundations of actually helping people make changes that last, helping coaches feel less frustrated when they sit down to do their client check-ins and not feel like their hands are tied when it comes to self-sabotaging behaviors, or the client who just seems motivated one week and then falls off for another 2 weeks, 2 step forward, 1 step back type of situation. That's what this stuff is for.
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff here. And I heard a couple things you said there. I think coaches, they do all this kind of education on things they already know. One, because they feel like they're being productive. And it's an easy way to feel productive, right? And I love this trap that people get into. And I think it's the consumption trap to feel like you're doing something that's it's emotionally soothing. And it also keeps, it doesn't just keep people away from what I tend to focus on, which is keeps them from being creative, building creativity, long form content creation, but also keeps them safe from then leaning into the hard things that they need to learn about. And you mentioned the word growth, and you described in all that growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And I've seen on your social media, you've talked about that, and you've talked about things how it's like it's not, it's sort of a false dichotomy to think you only have to be growth and fixed is somehow bad. But what are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that it's safer to your identity to stay within things you're already skilled at because people tell you you're great at these things. I guess, do you recommend the book Mindset by Carol Dweck? Do you think that's one of the best?
Oh my gosh, it's the mindset Bible. My PhD advisor has done a lot of work with Carol, so I kind of joke that I'm sort of her academic granddaughter in a way. So yes, 110%.
I love the book, and if I'm not mistaken, doesn't Carol use examples like John McEnroe? I think in the book, I have read it a long time ago, and for anybody, like I'm dating myself because I'm in my mid 40s, but I grew up watching a bit of like McEnroe playing tennis when I was a kid, and McEnroe was a legendary talent, but as the story goes, he wasn't great at embracing struggle or hard challenges because what it would do is would confront him with the fact that, and a lot of people get stuck in this place, confront him with the fact that maybe he's not as good as people are saying he is. It could challenge his legacy and he could fail. And so do you think a lot of coaches play it safe by not stepping into areas where they're worried they could be seen as failing?
Oh, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. Like how many coaches out there are seeing maybe some of my content or like understanding that, okay, this client isn't really responding the way that I want them to, and they're ghosting all of the time. Like it's really easy and really safe to just go, let me stay over here in the nutrition and fitness aspects. Like that's what I am. I'm a health and fitness coach. Like that's what I'm supposed to know, and just continue to throw more nutrition and exercise related strategies at them. And if they don't respond well to that, just go, okay, well, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not your mom. I hear that all of the time. So I can't do anything for you. My hands are tied. That's a you problem. That's a situation that I do not have the ability to help with. And it's really sad, honestly, because no, you should not be going out there touting that you're a psychologist or that you know psychology in that regard, right? But there is so much we can do as health and fitness coaches, down to just like asking questions differently, presenting information differently, having conversations with your clients in a way that actually cultivates a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset, which is what can happen if you go to a client and say, sorry, man, you're just being too needy. I don't know how to help you. I can't lead a horse. What is the whole lead a horse to water? You can't make them drink type of thing. Coaches use that all the time, or just label their clients as uncoachable in those situations. And all of that is just a cop out. It's a cop out to say like, okay, well, I'm maybe not willing or not under to learn or understanding the importance of this mindset, behavior change, psychology realm. So And yes, maybe I'm a little bit scared that if I get into it, that I'm not going to be good at it. This is all I know over here, the exercise and nutrition stuff. If I get into something entirely new, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I've been coaching for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and this is how I've been doing it. I don't want to be the old dog, new tricks type of situation. What if it doesn't go the way that I want it to? The way that I can do, the way that I do it is the best way, right? I've been doing it for this long. I've had plenty of client success. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, but every little thing that I just said was very much fixed mindset oriented for the coach.
So this ties in. This is actually a good conversation. So think about this. If we get the people who go back to the biomechanics, and I think an understanding of what actual biomechanics is, not fucking TikTok biomechanics. A lot of that shit's rubbish. A lot of that is status seeking, brand building, and tribal stuff on social media for clout. It is what it is. There are some smart people in that space. But I think in a way, with biomechanics and everything that comes with the technical training stuff, coaches can feel more of a sense of control over it, right? It's tactile, you can see it. Coaching is nebulous. Behavior change is nebulous. It's very hard to define, it's hard to see it. And I think it's easier just to stay within the parameters of something that coaches can control versus something they feel very that is outside of their control. And I like to put it this way. I think most trainers, if you really boil it down, would prefer to have the client, because we've all had this client who adheres to everything, perfectly adheres, does everything and gets great results. We love those kind of clients, but that's not coaching. That's programming, but it's not coaching. I'd say 1 out of 20 clients will manifest as this. 1 out of 20 clients is going to be some sort of unmitigated disaster that you can't do anything with. I think everybody else in the middle, their success hinges on your ability, and you said it, to ask great questions, to be able to lead them to the water and facilitate, and you're right. The whole thing is like, well, you can't make them drink. You can actually do a lot to facilitate them wanting to drink the water.
Yes, that's exactly what I say all the time. You're going to steal it right out of my mouth. I say we can sweeten the water. We can get them a straw. There's a lot of ways that we can still guide them towards that water, not make them. And I think that that's the perspective that so many coaches take is like, well, I can't make my clients be motivated. I can't show up at your house with your meal prep. Like I can't do those things for you, but you're missing all of the other things that you can do to help your clients do those things besides just write a meal plan or like hand over a training program, right? So there is so much undiscovered territory for so many coaches, but I think you're entirely right that so many of them are thinking like, this is how I've done things. And it does become very like dogmatic over there for sure. And this is just how we do things. This is what the coaching space looks like. But the reality is if you have clients who are struggling with self-sabotage and they're ghosting your check-ins and you're not getting enough information from them to do your job best, and you're just labeling them as uncoachable and assuming it's a them problem, the reality is it is a two-way street, and it's likely just as much a you problem as it is a them problem.
For years, I've seen coaches, and they're almost always out of the bodybuilding world. There's a lot of good coaches in that world, but a lot of them do this. And I see it on social media, and it's the post, it's the rant that says, if you don't listen to what your coach says, and if you don't follow, see, you're rolling your eyes. What are your eyes is twitching because you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's like, if you don't follow the diet, and if you don't do your workouts, and if you don't do this, and if you don't do this, and if you don't do this, then it's your fault. And it's like, I see that, I'm like, you're a bad coach. And I will say, you're a fucking idiot. Because what you're doing is you're deflecting from any responsibility from actually coaching. Now, do we know that there are clients that struggle with this stuff? 100%. But if you deflect from your responsibility to actually try to reach that person, and if you're creating a relationship that is where the client is fearful of shame, guilt, ridicule, criticism, anything, if they don't do everything, well, you've set them up to not want to tell you stuff, and you've set them up to fail. And I think the type of coach who's listening to this probably buys into this, but I also still hope we're challenging people and realize, oh yeah, maybe I do need to go do more of this psychology mindset stuff and get into stuff that my friend Jeb Johnston is amazing at this stuff. Josh Hillis is amazing at this stuff. Jill Coleman does great stuff with this.
Yeah.
Go into Dr. Lisa Lewis's stuff, right? And to dive into yours. And this is why I wanted you on here to introduce more people to what you're doing. So let's go here. You did a post. I like this. It's a bit of a pivot. You did a post about moving cities and being determined to find your people. And I wanted to ask you, like, you can tell the story if you want for context. How did you do it and why did it matter?
Okay. So, first things first, social support is hugely important when it comes to setting up a lifestyle that you say you want, certain health outcomes, how you want to feel on a day-to-day basis. The people that you surround yourself with matters. That whole saying about the 5 people you spend the most time around is the most important, yada yada, is in fact true. And we see this in the research in a million different ways, and how social support makes a difference in your life can positively impact or negatively impact, help you achieve your goals, make them a lot harder to achieve. So this story was me deciding, well, somewhat deciding, also just like moving on with my life in this trajectory. Leaving Minnesota is where the state that I grew up in, to go to North Carolina to pursue my PhD at NC State. So at the time, when I was in Minnesota going through my undergrad, that's when I really discovered strength training and nutrition and how good it can make me feel and how much I really just enjoyed learning about it, et cetera. And in that transition, we've all been through times in our lives where now suddenly all the people that we're around are very good friends don't really fit that direction of like what we're learning about ourselves as we are evolving and developing. So I really made it a huge point that like if I'm going to get out of the city, out of the state, I'm going to find some people that are more in alignment with me because I know that they exist. I see them on the bodybuilding.com forums. They're out there somewhere. So I made it a really big point. And I think people mention a lot about how like, oh, it's so great. They see my life now to see your life now. You're constantly surrounded by these people in health and fitness. Like, of course, it's easy for you to stick to that. And of course, it's easy to like make it your lifestyle because everybody else is. But I'm pretty sure you have stories too of where it wasn't always that way. And it does take effort. Like I was the girl sliding into the DMs of other girls that were going to the gym that I had planned to go to in Raleigh, North Carolina, and telling them, hey, I'm moving. I'm looking for some friends that are like-minded. Would you be open to getting coffee when I got into town just to get to know each other? I'll probably be at the same gym that you're at. And it was so well received. In fact, one of the gals, I did not end up going to be friends with her because she was also moving by the time that I was coming in. But she set me up with someone else who then helped me find a roommate. So the person that I actually ended up living with for nearly 5 years and is one of my best friends now came through this process, let alone the 10 to 12 other people that kind of like snowballed off of the few people that I met through those outreaches. So it can be scary to do things like that, but we also have like such great things at our disposal. Like also things like Bumble BFF didn't exist back then for me. I kind of did it myself. So making the effort to do that and really like seeking out like where are my people going to be then and how can I potentially take a risk to do this and see how it goes. And like worst case scenario, they don't respond or they say, hey, all my friend slots are filled. Like that's okay. It's always worth trying.
How important, let's take the concept further. How important is it to surround yourself with kindred spirits?
I mean, are we like putting it on in a list of, is it number one, two, three, four out of other things? Um, when it comes to behavior change specifically, since that's kind of the angle that we're going through here, and goal pursuit and living out your potential and getting to the place that you want to be, the people who are around you are incredibly important. And I would honestly probably put it up there, probably top one, two, or three for sure. Other things that I'm thinking about are like your own mindset, big surprise, and also your ability to self-monitor your goals. And I say that because that is something that is ridiculous when it comes to the behavior change research and how important it is to like be on top of monitoring the progress towards the goals and the things that you're working towards. So like those things, social support, self-monitoring, and your own mindset, like if you get those things in check, you're going to do well, my friend, for sure. So really, really important. And I think all of us can probably think of situations where maybe we weren't with the best group of people or we were starting to grow out of a group of people. And you can very quickly see how much more difficult it was for you to continue to work towards your goals. And I see this all the time with clients and have had so many conversations over the years around this where they feel like their self-control is just so bad. They have no willpower. But the reality is they're just surrounding themselves with people who are constantly putting themselves in situations that they have to go against temptation and they have to say no to things and constantly remind people that they have these health and fitness goals. And if we were to take that person and just put them into another group of people that were more like them, had similar goals, more like-minded, they probably wouldn't think their self-control was too bad. They probably wouldn't come to me and say, I just have no willpower. I don't know what to do. So that's a really interesting aspect in general, like kind of bringing social circles into this idea of self-control and willpower, because so much of self-control, everyone wants more of it. Everyone wants more self-control, willpower, motivation, but so much of that can actually just be influenced by your environment and the people that are around you.
It's like you read my mind. So when I was researching, I found a post recently, and you were talking about Alex Hormozy quote, and I tend to like most of the stuff Alex says. Every once in a
Yeah.
while, Alex will drop something that's just like horrendously awful or stupid, but then most of the time he says, I think things are poignant. I think most people just like find the stuff that he says makes them feel uncomfortable, which tells you that you're experiencing an edge to maybe grow a little bit. And then sometimes he just says something that's really tone deaf, but I like him. So, but it was, and I made the note about it. It's like, it's kind of like hacking your willpower. And so you went in that direction because obviously this is a concept that must be at the top of your mind. And I think part of this ties in with getting people to abandon victim narratives, because I really believe most people under most circumstances don't want to change, and they want to create an environment around them that they have a great story to say, well, it's not my fault. It's not within my control, external locus of control, fundamentally,
Mm-hmm.
where there's no pressure on them to do anything differently. And they've woven this very, very convenient narrative about most of their environment. And I think they create the environment to be stuck where they are, which absolves them of any responsibility or oftentimes internalized shame or guilt about having a role in changing. So, and this goes right to what you were talking about. So, the people you're around makes it big. Talk more about, what I'll say is hacking willpower by setting up your environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So what I was talking about in that reel and some of the research that's sort of been revealed over the past, I want to say like 5 to 7 years, the research on willpower and self-control and how we think about it from a psychological perspective has shifted pretty significantly. For a very long time, what was taught in schools and like how we were really taught, how I was taught in my PhD program, is that willpower, self-control, whatever you want to call it, is something that gets depleted as you use it. So you essentially start with like a full bucket of willpower, and then throughout the day, as you're having to use it to say no to the donut, to catch your tongue before you say something rude to your boss or whatever, as the day goes on. That's why by the end of the day, that second glass of wine is looking way too good, even though you promised yourself you were only going to have one. And then you just like can't resist that temptation. So that was what the thought around self-control and willpower was for a really long time, until some more researchers came out and were trying to replicate a lot of these original studies that a lot of these original studies were from the same researcher or from his lab. So there was a little bit of speculation around, is
Juan
this,
Six Lab, Cornell, the Cornell lab
it
thing.
wasn't one sync. It wasn't one sync.
Okay.
Different researcher, Roy Baumeister
Okay.
is his name. So,
Yeah.
but same thing happened to Wansink too. And that's really too bad because those studies were pretty cool. But with that said, there's a lot of replication crises going on in the psychological space for sure. So anyway, tried to replicate it, couldn't replicate it. People were starting to raise an eyebrow, like, is this the theory is called ego depletion theory. Really raised eyebrows around whether or not this is something we should continue to teach and we should continue to stand by when it comes to self-control research. So some of the more recent research was taking this into mind and testing it in different ways. And what they found was that some of this is still true. In fact, there was I'm going to try not to butcher this whole study from out of the top of my head, but there was a study that essentially had two groups of people drink either regular lemonade that had real sugar in it, or like stevia or aspartame sweetened lemonade. So there wasn't actually any glucose, any actual energy in there. And with this idea of ego depletion, that as you're using self-control, it can essentially be replenished by getting energy, getting glucose to your brain. So they had them drink these the fake sweetened and the real sweetened lemonade and go through a series of self-control tasks. And indeed, the people who had the real lemonade tended to do better on subsequent self-control tasks than the people who had the artificially sweetened lemonade. So, okay, so something's happening here, right? They went a level deeper and asked a little bit more about their beliefs around self-control. And suddenly that changed the story immensely. The people who thought that their self-control does get depleted throughout the day, that is a belief that they have, that they feel it, they know it to be true. They were the ones who benefited from the real sweetened, the glucose, the lemonade with the real sugar in it. They were the ones who benefited from it. The people who are like, no, I don't really think that's true for me. I think that in any circumstance, whether or not I used my self-control before, I can continue to exert it if I need to. It's not getting depleted throughout the day. Those people were not affected at all. So it turns out there may be something going on here, but really what matters most is your beliefs about willpower and self-control. So really mindset is sort of the king here. So very interesting piece of information there. And then to kind of like add another study very quickly onto this and kind of paint this whole picture of where the research stands currently is another study that they had people who said, I am good, like self-report, I'm good at self-control. I think that's something that I'm good at. I will say that. They have another group of people who are like, nope, not me, not good at self-control. Don't ask me to resist temptation. I'm not going to be good at it. So there's two different people who see themselves in these different ways. And then they kind of went into their lives and looked a little bit deeper and found and to see exactly how much self-control are these people actually using? How many situations are they in where they have to resist temptation in the first place? And found that the people who are saying, yep, that's me. I'm a self-control pro. I'm really good at this stuff. I can always resist temptation. Those people were significantly less often in situations where they even have to use self-control in the first place, compared to the people who said, nope, not good at self-control. That is not a strong suit of mine. They're in situations where they have to resist temptation. They have to exert self-control all of the time in comparison. So again, is it really like are you good at it? Are you bad at it? Do you need more of it? Is it energy focused? Are you just like depleted of all of your energy resources? And no, I think it's really more about what you believe to be true and also the situations that you're putting yourself in. So, which obviously then the situations that you're putting yourself in will play a role in whether or not you believe yourself to be good at self-control, which then can make you better at it if you believe that you are good at it. So you can see how that all kind of connects.
You described a lot of things surrounding fixed mindset. It almost seems like a lot of this stuff comes back to fixed mindset. Do you think on some level that it's not just that these people aren't shaping the environment for less of the dealing with less of these temptations? On some level, do you think these people are actually subconsciously or consciously shaping the environment to go the other way? And now we're starting to get into things like, this is tricky, but you'll know more about this than me, but the subsection of the population that, despite they may say that they want to, quote, lose weight, get metabolically healthier, and while there will be people who argue that those two things aren't like direct, like one-to-one related, there's a very, very strong overlap between those two things. Let's cut the shit out. We're tired of this ideological lie, I think. So, right? And I think that there are people who will say that they want those things, but their current identity is built around, or something is serving them better by keeping the weight on and any other aspect of this. And one of those pieces, and this is a complicated thing, you probably know more about this, is survivors of sexual traumas, where, and it's again oversimplification, but oftentimes they want to stay small, metaphorically small, physiologically large, to deflect from unwanted attention. That's just a piece of a much bigger thing. Anything to all of this that I'm talking about? Do people, are they self-sabotaging themselves?
Yeah. So I think it can end up being a self-fulfilling prophecy in that way, right? And that's what the fixed mindset can do to you. And this is where I think education around mindset and helping people get better at recognizing where their fixed mindset shows up, and coaches being able to do that for their clients and being able to pick that out in their clients is so crucial, because it can be this really sneaky, just back of your mind thing that you don't even realize is the cause of the reason why I can't stick to it. No matter what I do, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I can't keep up with it. What's going on with me? It's likely your fixed mindset because of things just like this. Because there's this little voice in the back of your head that is not sure that you can actually be successful, that you're just going to fail again for the 900th time. You're going to try this other diet thing and it's not going to work. And you're going to go back to square one, and you're going to be embarrassed. And you're going to tell your friends, and then you're going to gain the weight back, and da 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 da. So that is happening. But all of those things, like that's great evidence. It's evidence in your life for you to have that belief system. So I don't want to like invalidate that at all, but understand like that is the thing that's likely holding you back from a lot more progress.
The stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. The Hormozy quote that
Mhm.
Chris Williamson has kind of popularized, inverted, because it works both ways.
Yeah,
Go
exactly.
on.
That's
Go on.
exactly it. That's exactly it. And so what the fixed mindset will do too is continue to try to keep you safe in this area that you already know who you already are, kind of like confirmation bias coming back again here as well. And instead of, oh, I'm going to try this new thing, or oh, maybe this will be this coach or this program is going to be the answer to finally being able to stick with it. It keeps you from, yeah, maybe not. Every other time it didn't work. So why would this one work? It keeps you from putting yourself out there, taking risks, trying things differently. Whereas someone with a growth mindset would see, oh, those things didn't work for me in the past. Good to know. Probably not going to do them again. All that's doing is helping me better understand what not to do in the future. And I've learned a lot from those situations. So this new thing that I found, like, fuck yeah, bring it on. Let's try something new. Let's work with a new coach. Let's try a different method. Let's try a new strategy and see if that'll work for me. Because I know in the back of my mind, ultimately, I can be successful. So I might as well keep trying until I get there, versus the fixed mindset person who in the back of their mind is thinking, ultimately, I don't think I can be successful. Then what's the point of trying in the first place? I mean, it makes sense logically, right? Like if you don't think you can be successful, why would you put the time and the money and the effort and the energy into trying to change if you don't think it's actually possible for you? Yeah, it would be silly. That would be a waste of all of that for sure. But
And I do have a theory that we've been dancing around this, that some people will make token efforts to prove that they cannot
good
change. And
try.
I've always thought of the New Year's resolution behavior where someone goes and does the draconian diet and says, I will never have sugar again. I will never have any of this stuff again. And I'm going to work out 6 days a week. And they do not have these skills. And then maybe they're lucky to make it 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, but then they fail. And I believe to my very essence of my being that a lot, not all, a lot of the people, what they're actually doing is they're artificially creating a scenario that they subconsciously could never be successful in, which then alleviates them of the responsibility of change, because then they have proven to themselves and other people around, see, I am not the kind of person, fixed mindset, who can do this. And then all of a sudden they're alleviated of that emotional discomfort for a while, and then they go back to the old ways, the old behavior that keeps them where they are, until that discomfort, emotional discomfort, gradually creeps up, creeps up, creeps up. They gain a little bit more weight, they feel a little bit unhealthier, they get a little bit older, and then they do this cycle all over again. And I think that New Year's is just a perfect manifestation of it, but I think it exists elsewhere. Thoughts?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think there's another layer of fixed mindset at play here too, where a lot of people think they need to do something very drastic in order to make that change. So the people who are sitting here like, I really, in the back of my head, not really sure that I can do this. Like nothing's ever worked before. It has to be something significantly different from what I'm doing right now, this drastic change in order for it to work then. Like that's gotta be it. So that's a fixed mindset in and of itself, though, thinking that it has to be a lifestyle 180, this huge, drastic, restricted, cut out everything, whatever type of diet plan in order to work. So there's like a fixed mindset layered on top of another fixed mindset. And what's really sad is that this is what the billion-dollar diet industry thrives off of, is understanding that this is how people are working and this is how they're thinking. And they're essentially like exploiting that. There's a concept called false hope syndrome. And that is what the diet industry really like thrives off of. It is helping people feel like they have hope. I have this really drastic restrictive diet plan thing that is totally different than anything you've ever done before. It's going to work. And they're like, oh my God, maybe this is the thing. It is so different than anything I've done before. So maybe I can finally not compare my past failures to this new thing. They get excited, they try it. Maybe it works a little bit. Maybe it's like the whole keto approach. People lose a ton of weight for a month and then gain it all back type of thing. So you end up on this roller coaster of like, oh my God, this is the thing. This is going to work. It's starting to work. And like, oh, never mind. It's not again. And they totally plummet, but they want to feel that false hope again. And that is where we just keep getting attacked with these different fad diet every quarter, because this is that roller coaster that people are riding. Need to get off the roller coaster.
Is there something to buying into hope and the addiction to either the hope or the addiction, and this has got to be relevant, to talking about doing the thing that, I mean, I think there's a psychology when you talk about doing something, accomplishing something, it almost replaces or acts like you've actually done it. And therefore it reduces your desire, reduces the effort to actually accomplish the thing. Is there anything there?
Yeah, that's absolutely a real thing. It will feel as if you almost already did it without having actually taken any action or gone through the obstacles or the challenges or actually got yourself to that outcome. That is a real thing. And I think it's tough because we do have research to support that sharing your goals with others and sort of committing to them in that way, writing it down, speaking about it, telling people who are important to you that this is something that I want to do and it's something that I'm actively working towards, can help make you more successful rather than keeping it in the background, so that if you fall off, that you stop doing it, that you're not consistent with it, like nobody has to know, right? So there is something to be said for that. But I think we've all been there when we're really excited about a new project, a new idea. Oh, we could come out with this thing, or we could go this direction or whatever. And you're sharing it with friends and they're like egging you on, like, oh, and then you could do this and they could attach to that. And oh my God. And that feels really good. It feels really good. Better than the process to actually getting it done, right? So many people get stuck there, whether it's weight loss, it's business, it's anything. So many people get stuck there and just feeling good about it instead of actually working towards it.
I have a rule within my career. I never publicly share any details about anything upcoming when it comes to a major speaking thing, a new writing publication, anything like that, until it's actually official. I want to see. I was at the goal line. I can tell this story now, and I've told it on air before. I was at the goal line for being published on bodybuilding.com. Now, if you go to my website, you'll see a lot of the stuff I've been publishing. I've been publishing a lot of the biggest industry stuff. Bodybuilding.com is not one of them. If you Google, should still be up, you will see I have a contributor page on bodybuilding.com. No article attached. I was paid. I was commissioned, paid. I still chat with that same editor. He messaged me like a few days ago. We're talking, this is years ago. And anyway, article submitted. He loved it. Told me he had more for me. Bodybuilding.com got purchased. Editor left. He messaged me to make sure I was paid. That's how conscientious this guy was. He's amazing. He now works for another entity, another brand. And but the article was never officially published, so I've never actually publicly like put it on any of my media to say, hey, I've written for bodybuilding.com. But who knows? I sort of maybe possibly could, because I've been paid to write for them. It just never was published. So I'd like, so yeah, it's giant fuck up the ass, sort of like as a possible career accomplishment, because bodybuilding is a big thing.
Of course, yeah.
But it's also a lesson, you know, hey, don't count these chickens until they're absolutely hatched. And I've had other things fall through like this. So everything we're talking about, how in the hell do we go from the understanding what the hell's going on to coach to client? How can you help a coach who's listening reach their clients? The clients who are stuck in these places, how can the coach bridge that?
Yeah. There's a lot of different strategies, a lot of different options. Really, I'm just gonna say it depends, right? It depends on the person, depends on the situation. But I think honestly, what would be helpful here is to share a little bit about common missteps that I see from coaches too, because going that direction, if you can notice this stuff in your coaching, like immediately things are going to improve if you can go the other direction. So the first most common always thing that I see with new students who come into my certification, or just like coaches online in general, and it's coming from such a good place. Like, these are coaches who really want to help. They're not just over here like, I'm a bodybuilding coach and I'm just going to send you a one-line response to all of your check-ins and tell you your macros look good and see you next week. Like, these are coaches who really are like, no, I'm doing a lot of good here and I'm excited for it. So those coaches are often leaning too far into wanting to fix all of the time, wanting to immediately provide solutions to their clients. Because, and especially I feel like I feel for newer coaches who are like, I have all of this information and I have everything that I want to share with you, and I'm the expert in nutrition and fitness. Let me show you, let me help you. And what that can turn into is a whole host of not so great stuff from a mindset and behavior change perspective. Because ultimately, I want you to remember, we're trying to help our clients become more autonomous. It's a basic psychological need that we have as humans to be motivated and stick to things, is to feel autonomous. And so in these situations, when you have a client who's struggling to hit their protein intake, and the first thing you do is send them your pretty PDF that's all branded with your colors and your logo, here's all of the protein snack options. Someone may come back to you and say, you don't think I could have Googled that? Like, I've already spent a lot of time looking at high protein options. Okay, now it's you come off condescending. Or someone comes back to you and says, Kasey, half of the stuff on here is dairy. You forgot that I'm lactose intolerant. And now you come off as like, you're not paying attention, you don't care. Or they just come back and they're like, okay, I guess I can try this, but this feels overwhelming. Like, there's so many ways they could come back and have not felt good about it. Or they don't say anything to you and they just take it and they think to themselves, like, this wasn't actually that helpful for my situation. Remember, as the coach, you are the expert, yes, on nutrition and fitness, but you are not the expert on this person, on your client's life. And you could go so much further by asking some questions first and having a conversation rather than just handing over the PDF.
I'm showing Kasey a book that I love. It's called The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay
Oh,
Stanier.
I know this
And
book.
he
Yeah.
talks, be shocked. It's actually my favorite book. I like it more than motivational interviewing because I think it's a much better and easier to read breakdown of how to ask questions. That's what it's about. But he describes, he actually goes and did a second book called The Advice Trap. And what you just described was the advice trap. The coach who is too excited to show how much they know and how much value they can deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what you described. Do you think, I mean, I believe this, do you think that a coach can take too much ownership and responsibility for the outcome from the client to the point where that you disempower the client?
I think taking too much responsibility can be detrimental for sure. Because I think I have a hard time saying that, because I think most coaches would be better off taking more responsibility for their clients and like how they are responding to things, not responding to things. Oh, I have this super needy client. Like, I would like more coaches to take responsibility for those things for sure. But in some cases, yeah, you're taking too much responsibility, and to make this person be successful, then you're taking power away from that person to start to learn and come up with solutions themselves, which is ultimately where we want to go with this. And I have coaches often come to me too, are like, Kasey, all these question asking and going back and forth. Like, I don't have time for that. I have to like get through my check-ins in 20 to 30 minutes. How am I going to do this? But you have to understand too, that some of the time you put up front with these people and start to guide them to come up with solutions on their own, and think a little bit more critically about things and teach them and help them in these ways, that down the line, it's only going to make your job easier. Now, suddenly your client check-ins can be half the time, because this person is going, I have this goal, I have this idea, or I'm struggling with this thing, and here's all of the ways I'm going to try to find a solution for it or try to work through it. What do you think about it? And now they're coaching themselves essentially, and you just need to sign off on it. And that is a beautiful place to be versus, oh, I'm not going to put all this time and effort into them. And now you continue to have to spend more and more time as they're ghosting you, as they're not giving enough information, as they're withholding information from you. So it can just like spiral into spending way too much time. And then that's when those coaches just say, well, that person's uncoachable and I'm going to drop them off my roster. And that's that.
And everybody loses. You lost a client, that person's lost a coach and the support. They maybe feel like they failed. A lot of not so great stuff. So the stuff we're talking about is probably scraping the surface of what you teach in your certification, right? Um, Tell everybody listening a little bit more about what's involved with that, and then how people can find out more about you, follow you.
Yeah, yeah. So the health mindset coaching certification is my bread and butter. It is my baby. We are moving into the ninth round, which is crazy. 10 is next year. I know. So I'm very excited for that. We've had, I think we're at probably just over 700 coaches that are certified at this point. And it is a cohort style program. So we only open twice per year. I say it is self-paced, but instructor led. So through the 13 weeks that we are together, you have a training to watch from me. You have a worksheet, you have tools to use with your clients. We have tons of application exercises, etc. And then you can kind of go through that content each week on your own pace, watch 15 minutes there, listen to another 10 minutes over there, whatever. But then we will meet for a live discussion to go over the content and continue to talk about how this science of psychology and mindset and behavior change is actually going to play out in a client check-in, for example. So we'll do that. There's a client case study at the end, but we are going through essentially all the nuts and bolts of behavior change. So we're looking at some of these really long-standing, well-validated theories in the research for why people do things or don't do things, and how we can then leverage that understanding inside a health and fitness coaching practice. So I'm delivering you the science, but making it very digestible for the health and fitness coach. And then from there, we'll talk about all the fun things like self-control, stress, habit formation, growth versus fixed mindset, motivation, goal setting, and get into the science and strategy behind that. But again, in a way that is digestible for you to use with your clients in real time. And we're going to talk a lot about communication too. That's kind of where we wrap up, is taking everything we just learned, creating your own coaching framework, making sure you feel really good about applying everything, and now how you actually speak to the client. And the way, this is where motivational interviewing comes in. And I have 2 full weeks on communication skills for how to ask these specific questions to guide towards behavior change, guide towards a growth mindset. So that is kind of like the quick nuts and bolts of everything. If you want to learn more, like really dive into like what's in the curriculum and what to expect, healthmindsetcert.com is the best place to go. When you're there, you can also sign up for the wait list. If you do that, you get 5 free lessons right off the bat to kind of get your feet wet as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Our enrollment date is August 19th.
So it'll be, anyone listening to it as it's going live, just mark down that date. It'll be coming soon. Someone else maybe listening a little bit around that date, you're good to go. So, I mean, I brought you on because I wanted to learn more about what you were doing. I want to share you with everybody. I go out of my way not to platform people that I don't support. If you go back far enough into the earliest episodes, there are probably a couple of individuals from like 6 years ago that I'd be like, no, I openly do not endorse these people, but the overwhelming library of my guests are amazing.
I hope that's not me in 6 years.
I don't think it'll be you in 6 years. I don't worry about that at all. It's a long story. I'm not getting into it. Um, some of my good friends know what I'm talking about. But I mean, that's the industry, right? Things change and evolve over time. And I'm grateful to have you on. Everybody listening, please go check out what Kasey is doing. What is your social media handle so they can follow you?
I am Coach Kasey Jo, and that's Kasey with a K and Joe without an E.
There you go. All right. Everybody go follow Kasey. And again, I enjoy this one. I always enjoy these episodes, but this one was really fun, poignant. It made me think about some stuff. So I hope that you, the coach listening, get a lot out of this. And B, you're kind of going, all right, I got a friend who like needs to follow Kasey. Share this with them. That's the ask. That's the thing, is give this to one person, a coach who you've never shared my podcast with before, who you think would like it. Share this episode specifically. It helps me grow. It shares Kasey with more people. It gets your certification out there a little bit more. And this mushrooms over time. And everybody listening, thank you guys always. I appreciate you. I'm going to do my best to continue to get you a weekly episode. My travel coming up may interfere a little bit, but I will be keeping these coming. Thank you.